Every gardener's instinct when they see a weed is to pull it immediately, without thinking. But what if that weed was trying to tell you something? What if the specific weed growing in your specific bed was a direct message from your soil about exactly what it is missing? Stacey Murphy walked into a Brooklyn backyard filled with 8-foot weeds 2 days before planting an entire farm. And she was not worried. She was excited because she knew something most gardeners never learn. Weeds are not your enemy. They are your soil's most honest communication. And in the next 15 minutes, she is going to show you how to read them.
My favorite part. So here's the same list of weeds and the soil conditions that they like. So find your weed. Hopefully it's on the list. Like I said, not every weed is on this list. So take a look at the soil condition, and does that sound about right to you? Is that what you're experiencing with your soil? So you may start to have an epiphany here and realize that the weed that you're having a problem with is telling you what your soil needs. So
this Q&A was recorded at a past Grow Your Own Vegetables event, where Stacey Murphy reveals why your weeds are your soil's most honest communication and how to use them to build a healthier garden. For more information, free resources, and gentle guidance, you can find us at growyourownvegetables.org. And to grow alongside other gardeners just like you, join our free community at gyov.org.
So weeds are plants too, and you're going to decide if you want to cultivate them or not. And I'm going to tell you a little story here, and keep in mind, with all of these pest diseases and weeds, there are some that are more tenacious than others. And so if you're somebody who's sitting back and saying, hey, yeah, this is all well and good, but man, this girl has never encountered this problem, just know that I understand that there's certain things like bindweed that are very tenacious. But for about 90% of the weeds, you are deciding if you want to cultivate them or not. And here's what I mean by that. So I'm going to tell you another story. Here's a photo of my first backyard garden 2 days before I planted all my seeds and seedlings. And I want to emphasize that point. This is 2 days before we planted all the crops. So notice anything strange? Yeah, those are all weeds, and some of them are about 8 feet tall. They were taller than I was. Some of them even had flowers on them, which means they were producing more weed seeds, and they were dropping them to the earth, trying to become even more weeds. Oh, what a nightmare, right? And the homeowner who donated this yard kept apologizing to me. And, she was saying, oh, it's such a mess, I'm so sorry, because it was June 15th. The growing season was already 2 months underway. And here's my question for you. Do you think I was worried about the weeds? Honestly, I wasn't. I was kind of excited because weeds are simply plants, and they are very opportunistic of bare soil. They're trying to improve the soil structure and protect the soil from erosion, just like me.
This is the moment that changes how you see every weed in your garden. 8-foot weeds 2 days before planting, and Stacey was not worried. She was excited because she understood what those weeds were doing and what they were about to do for her soil.
Like me, they're kind of my best friends right now, right? They're great this way, but I know they can also be a nuisance if they get in the way of what we want to do. If they're super tenacious, they are a nuisance. And sometimes they can get a head start on us, and they can take over, and that's when they become a real problem. So the idea is to get ahead of the weeds. So I wasn't that worried because I knew that if weeds could grow, so could my vegetables. And I knew I could outcompete these weeds. And indeed, just 2 days later, we had planted out the site, and in another 4 weeks, we were harvesting food weed-free. So I have to admit, I did something a bit extreme in this particular backyard. So let me share with you what I did. First, I dug up the deep-rooted weeds. There was some pokeweed that was particularly tenacious. There was some thistle that was particularly deep-rooted and very prickly. And it took me a couple hours, but I think it was worth it. And the second thing that I did is I took the weed matter that was above ground and I chopped it down to the soil line, and I basically removed any flowers or seeds, and I took those off the site because I don't want any more weeds. I don't want them to produce more seeds and more weeds later. So I took those off of the site, and then I chopped up everything, all the weeds that I did have, and I just dropped them in place. And I'll share more about why I did this in just a moment. Now, third, if this were any other site, I would dump about 2 inches of compost across all the planting beds, and I would just start gardening. But because there was some heavy metal concerns here, lead was a concern in this backyard, we dumped 18 cubic yards of soil from a local organic farm on top. This was great soil. 18 cubic yards of soil. That's 3 big truckloads. Imagine truckloads just showing up and dumping. It was crazy. Not your everyday truck either. It was commercial dump trucks. So each planting bed had 10 inches of organic soil and 2 inches of compost. That was to ensure that I was growing my vegetables in those top 12 inches where the lead was not going to be an issue. So this was a bit extreme, right? So keep in mind, this is a side note, if it were fall like it is here in the Northern Hemisphere and I lived in the suburbs, I could have come up with a different solution. I could have collected enough yard waste and fallen leaves to create layered garden beds and let it decompose over the winter. But I didn't have access to any of that, and I was in the middle of a city in the middle of summer. So our best resource, believe it or not, it sounds crazy, was a nearby organic farm with really good quality soil. So here's the question: were weeds ever an issue again? So over the course of the season, every once in a while, I saw a pokeweed rear its head again, because those have some deep roots and hard to pull out roots, but they never grew inside my planting beds, just in the pathways, because I was cultivating what I wanted in the planting beds. And in 5 years of gardening on this site, weeds were never an issue. Why is that? So the big why is because that high quality soil and compost is not the ideal habitat for weeds. And remember that secret number 1 is to focus on our health plan first. But what else was at play here? I did have a bunch of prevention strategies in place in my garden system that kept the weeds from bothering me. And I had a plan if one of them did show up. So how did I get there? And the big question here is, what do weeds really want, right? So I mentioned that weeds are opportunistic and they're trying to improve the soil like we are. And
this is the single most important reframe in this entire video. Weeds do not want to be in your healthy soil. They want bare, depleted soil because that is where they are needed. So build the soil and the weeds move on.
Soil like we are. And so something you may already know, those weed seeds are always in your soil. A lot of them. A lot of people call this a weed seed bank. And there is those seeds, when the opportunity presents itself with the right conditions, they will sprout. And I just want to underline this, that weeds actually have some beneficial qualities if we allow them to coexist in our garden in a peaceful way. So part of conquering the weeds is to relax our notion that we have to eradicate them at all costs. A baby weed here or there is not the end of the world. You are the one who is in control. You don't have to be obsessive compulsive about it if you don't want to be. I mean, you can be obsessive compulsive and pull out every weed, but you don't have to get lots of food out of your garden, because a lot of them don't affect your yield. If they're not binding up a lot of soil, they're not going to steal the nutrients that your plants need. So that's what I want to show you, is how to find a good balance when working with weeds and what to do to keep them from taking over. And after all, many of our favorite annual vegetable crops started out as weeds. All right, so you are in control here. You're going to choose which weeds stay and which ones go. I want you to hold that idea tight. Okay, so here's a list of some common weeds, and not every weed is on this list. I'm sure there's dozens more that I could come up with. One thing that you're going to note right away is that your perspective is everything here. So I may not mind a little dandelion, a little poke pokeweed or some lamb's quarter in my garden, but you might. I might call them edible, and you might call them a weed because you don't want them around. I'm not going to let them take over my garden, but I'm going to take full advantage of them if they're there. So I'm going to eat the edible parts, and I'm going to make sure that they don't go to seed and propagate across my garden. So, eat your weeds, because if you're feeling controlling and not wanting any weeds in your vegetable garden, can you imagine how cathartic it's going to be to eat your problems, to just digest them and get rid of them? Seriously, it makes you feel like you're the boss of your garden, and that's kind of what we're going after in this live class, right? So try some dandelion soup. Greens of dandelions are best in the cooler seasons when the leaves are soft and not as bitter, and that's when the plant is young. You want to harvest it young so that it doesn't produce more seeds. Same thing, try some sauteed lamb's quarter when it's a baby plant. The greens are best when the plant's young and soft and not when it's tall. You don't want the plant to seed, and here on the screen, plantain in the lower right corner, which also has medicinal qualities, those are all seeds. You don't want that in your garden, so you want to take the plantain out before this happens. You want to make sure you remove it and do something with it, whether you're going to eat it or use it as a poultice, spit poultice for something. But just get it out of your garden before it seeds.
Before you pull your next weed, ask whether you can eat it instead. Dandelion, lamb's quarter, plantain, most of the weeds in your garden are edible and nutritious. And the boss move is not to eradicate them, but to eat them before they can seed.
Okay. Now, here's something that's pretty cool. This is one of my favorite parts. So here's the same list of weeds and the soil conditions that they like. So find your weed. Hopefully it's on the list. Like I said, not every weed is on this list. So take a look at the soil condition, and does that sound about right to you? Is that what you're experiencing with your soil? So you may start to have an epiphany here and realize that the weed that you're having a problem with is telling you what your soil needs. So generally, when there's a deficiency in the soil, and when I say deficiency, I'm talking about we're trying to grow vegetables and herbs. If there's a deficiency in the soil and the nutrients aren't there to grow those vegetables and herbs, the right weed pops up to try to balance it out. So what's present in the plant matter is that, let me just emphasize that. So what's present in that particular plant matter, the weed, that is the nutrient that the soil needs. So remember I mentioned earlier that I chopped up my weeds and I dropped them in place. I didn't chop up the seeds though, or the flowers, but I chopped up the plant. And that's because I was putting those particular nutrients back into the soil.
Write this down. This is one of the most extraordinary pieces of gardening knowledge in this entire video. Find your weed on the list, read the soil condition it indicates, and you will know exactly what your soil needs for free from a plant you were about to throw away.
Pretty neat, right? So you can use this list in two ways. You can start to read what's going on in the soil by what seeds or by what weeds are growing, and you can start to improve your soil based on what the weed is telling you it's lacking. All right. So dandelion and burdock roots, they are deep. They are breaking up clay soil. So maybe you can find other ways to aerate that soil. Worms love to aerate the soil. So how could you invite worms in to start tunneling through your soil? And this is why you see people who have lots of clay chopping and dropping lots of organic matter on top of, or maybe layering organic matters on top of that clay, because that invites the earthworms to start chewing it up and tunneling through and breaking up that clay. And so when you look at your garden system holistically this way, you can find lots of ways to address your weed issues. Now, one thing I love doing is to outcompete my weeds. And so here is an image of that same backyard farm with my green bed, Swiss chard, callaloo, and kale and collards. It had pretty much every green in this bed. And so I like to outcompete. And what does that mean? What I do is I plant my crops close together, and then I quickly create this lush green cover so no sunlight can reach the soil, and that means that no weed seeds can germinate. So basically, when the soil is and at the beginning of the season, I generally have a cover crop that's grown in, and I drop that in place, and then I plant these crops in. The soil's buried, but once all that cover crop starts to decompose and the soil becomes exposed a little bit, it's not exposed to the sunlight, so no seeds are going to germinate. So I've outcompeted it. I've basically gotten the leg up, so to speak, in the race. Another trick of the trade is to undercrop, which means basically you're going to cover all the available soil underneath those taller plants. And you're going to plant whatever you do want instead of allowing any space for those weeds to grow in. And it can be a cover crop like clover, which adds nutrients to your soil again, or it could be another crop altogether, like this image of tomato bushes that are growing tall, and then the basil plants underneath. And what I'm doing is I'm pruning the lower 12 to 18 inches of those tomato plants so that sunlight can come through those plants all times of the day. So I'm getting enough sunlight for the tomato plants, but then I'm also getting enough sunlight for that basil that's growing underneath as well. So this is something called undercropping. And this is another way that I can outcompete those weeds because I don't have any available soil for them to grow. I keep cultivating the plants I do want, and those are not weeds, right? The definition of a weed is what we don't want. So that's secret number 3, weeds are plants too. You decide if you want to cultivate them or not. Okay, so I have an exercise for you. And keep in mind, we're going to be going to questions soon. So if you have a question, please post it in the question box. And if you're wondering what that beautiful thing is on the screen, that is a saddlebag caterpillar that is sometimes on corn bushes. I saw one for the first time a couple of years ago. It's so beautiful, right? But it hurts if it stings you. Okay. So I've got an exercise for you. I'm just trying to find it real quick. Okay, so here's your exercise. Whenever you run into something you don't want in your garden, step 1, you're the boss, right? So step 1, what is it you're trying to eliminate from your garden? So identify what it is. Maybe it's a pest, maybe it's a disease, maybe it is a weed. Step 2, what does the pest, disease, or weed want out of your garden? So, and beyond just what does it want right now, what does it want over time? Remember the example of the squash vine borer, it had different needs at different times, right? And so knowing what it wants at different times, you might be intercepting parts of the life cycle at different moments, right? So step number 3, you're going to describe the problem in quotes, right? We always talk about the problem being the solution. This is how you turn the problem into the solution. So
think about where you were at the start of this video, automatically pulling every weed you saw, frustrated that they kept coming back, not knowing that each one was trying to tell you something specific about your soil. Now look at what you know. Weeds are opportunistic plants trying to improve bare, depleted soil. Exactly what you are trying to do. Healthy soil full of compost is not their preferred habitat. Build the soil, and the weeds move on. Each weed in your garden is a free soil test. Dandelion and burdock mean compacted clay that needs aeration. Find your weed on the list, read what it is telling you, and fix the soil condition rather than fighting the symptom. Chop your weeds down before they seed. Drop them in place. Return those nutrients to the soil they were pulling up. Plant your crops close together so no sunlight reaches bare soil and no weed seeds can germinate. And if all else fails, eat them. Stacey Murphy has been managing weed-free gardens for years without herbicides. The weeds were never the problem. The soil was telling you something. Now you know how to listen. You are not the gardener who fights weeds anymore. You are the one who reads them, who chops and drops, who plants close enough that no bare soil is ever available.
who eats the dandelions before they seed. If you want to keep learning from Stacey Murphy, there is a whole community of gardeners working with their soil instead of against it, completely free at growyourownvegetables.org.
This Q&A was recorded at a past Grow Your Own Vegetables event, and what Stacey just shared with you took her years of growing, failing, and figuring out to discover. Now imagine sitting down with 15 experts exactly like her. 15 of the most respected gardeners, herbalists, and soil scientists on the planet, each sharing the single most powerful lesson they know, the insight that changed everything about how they grow food, the thing they wish someone had told them at the beginning. Clinical herbalists who can turn your garden into a medicine cabinet, soil scientists who will change how you see every handful of dirt, food growers who have fed entire communities from a backyard. All of it waiting for you right now, completely free at the Superfood Garden Summit. Go to growyourownvegetables.org/summit, register in 30 seconds, and start watching immediately.